Thank you. Hi, I'm Jodi. I'm an alcoholic. Um, it's a privilege to stand here today. And I remember actually going to an AA meeting well before I quit drinking. As Steve had mentioned, we have a long lineage of alcoholics in my family, and my sister had brought me to a meeting before I um, had quit, and the first thing I heard is from someone is I'm a grateful alcoholic, and I thought, pshaw. And I stand here today truly believing, and I'm really grateful to be an alcoholic. I didn't know where to start when talking about our stories. And so I thought maybe I'd start with what is the cornerstone of my program today. It's the building block. It's what I rely on. It's what I lean on. And it was what was lacking in most of my life while I was drinking, and it's honesty. My sobriety date is March 7th, 2015. And I think we'll start with a fall day in 2014 where I had at this point to set alarms so that I could wake up and have a drink. Otherwise, I would suffer massive detox cravings and shakes and inability to physically function. Long gone were the days of not drinking during the day, drinking on the job. And I was at work, and a woman turned to me who was new to our office, and she said to me, "Oh my gosh, when is your baby due?" And I thought, oh my God, she sees me. I had physical failing health, and my belly was so distended that I looked as if I was going to give birth. At that point, being a really good alcoholic with intent steeped in telling myself lies and denial, I decided it must have been a sign of menopause because I was 47. So I called my OBGYN and made an appointment and walked into her office, and she took one look at me and she said, "Well, I'm really glad you're here, although you're probably at the wrong specialist. But let's start with some blood work." We went ahead and did some blood work, and as we found in those results, my a normal range for your liver enzymes highs are in the 280s, and I was at 1800. She had immediately gotten me into a liver specialist. And he looked at me and he said, "Your results are unusual. They're actually not that clear. We're going to need to do a biopsy because I can't determine whether you have liver cancer or this is diet and alcohol related." Well, this was the first time I actually started to pray, and I was praying for cancer. I was praying for cancer so that I could drink through chemotherapy. Yeah. And that is how crazy and baffling this disease is. Within the next couple of weeks, it took a few weeks to get onto the hospital schedule to have that biopsy done. They immediately put me on some diuretics to reduce the ammonia levels in my body that were killing brain cells at drastic rates. And this was the first time I had heard the term wet brain. I thought I was actually functioning rather well. Well, we went ahead and had the biopsy done, and I walked into their office, and it was the doctor and the nurse. And the doctor turned to me and he said, "Well, unfortunately, yet fortunately, we have found that it is diet and alcohol related." He said, "You're functioning at about 8%. And he said, "But unfortunately, I can't put you on a list for a liver because you are still drinking." And he said, "So I'm going to recommend that you go home and that you call us every day. And when you stop calling, we'll just assume that you've passed." I was devastated. All those mornings that I had said to myself, I'll quit tomorrow. I'll quit when things are brighter. I'll quit when my marriage improves. All of that had been taken away. The freedom of choice around alcohol had been taken away. And now I was going to lose my life. Well, he left, and the nurse turned to me and she said, Jodi, you have 2 children. Don't you want to see them graduate? Don't you want to see them get married? Don't you want to see them? And I said, yes, yes, I'll do anything. And she said, well, we don't know how much of your liver you need to survive. So you need to get into treatment right away, and we'll see how this goes. Well, I went home, and the first thing I did, because it had been so stressful, was pour a giant glass of wine and go into my closet and call my sister and ask for help. It was the first time in my life that I feel that I had asked for help. She said, I would love to help you. We're all well aware. The whole family had been talking about it. I, of course, thought no one knew. She lived in Colorado, so she was not going to be much help in my area of Seattle. So I reached out to my drinking partner in crime, my best friend who I had known since I was 16. And she said, well, the time has come. She and I had made a pact when we were 26 years old that if one of us was going to go to treatment, the other was going to go with them. And she said to me, I'm going to help you, but you know I'm not coming. And I said, that's fine. I've got to go. And at this point, we actually found a woman in our neighborhood who had been to treatment 4 different times. While she had no success, she certainly knew how to find me a bed. And within 4 days, I was in the treatment center. It was kind of a daze while I was there. I can't imagine what the state of my brain was at that point. But in a short 30 days, I had dropped 15 pounds of water weight. I had felt promise and hope because I could wake up, and I had gone 30 days without a drink. I was on a pink cloud. I walked out of the treatment center. Luckily, they had lined me up into outpatient, and in outpatient, I was required to attend AA meetings. I started that, and I felt wonderful. I felt invincible. I started a new job. My marriage was rocky, but I thought we'd work through that. And I was attending meetings and outpatient, but I was not doing any work. It was probably 4 or 5 months later that really, as the pink clouds pass, life got really dark again. The emotions were overwhelming. I had no tools to deal with them. I didn't know where to go. I was attending the meetings, but not grasping or understanding, truly listening. And it was a night in December, pouring down rain in Seattle. I'm sitting in Discovery Park, and I'm reaching in my glove box for a gun. I reached a new bottom. I could not live this way. I had been sober, and life was worse. Thank God I didn't have a gun, but I had a phone filled with numbers from AA. And I called my sister, who was 3 years ahead of me in the program. And she said, you have to do the steps. It is the only way out. And the next day I went to my morning meeting at 7 a.m., found my sponsor and said, we are going to do this because I really didn't want to die. And we started the steps in earnest. I had no problem with step 1. I knew that I was powerless over alcohol. I had no problem with step 2. I knew there was something greater than myself. I was alive, and I had an 8% chance of living. But step 3, where to find God? I had no idea where to find God. And so I worked in earnest. I went back to the Catholic Church. I started doing Buddhist meditations. I even went to the Scientology organization and took a few classes. Thank goodness none of that spoke to me. And I ended up doing the steps in AA and finding my way. My sponsor was worried about me doing step 4 without God in my pocket because it can be extremely painful. And actually, what I found is it was through that experience of investigating those childhood things and working through all of the events in our lives that were difficult and suffering that I did find my God. And it's a God of my own making. I continue to do Buddhist meditations. I do use the word God, which is some sort of Christian nature, I assume, but really believe that it's love and trust and light and beauty. I did my step 4 with my sponsor at step 4 and 5. And I did travel back to childhood. I was seeing a counselor at the time as well. And I was the youngest of 4. And my mother was 25 years old with 4 children. And she really did the best she could. Our house was a little chaotic. My dad was working 2 jobs. We had a roof over our head. But there was a lot of times where I was left behind. One day I was in a department store and I thought it'd be really cute. And I was 6 years old. And I thought it would be cute to stand with the mannequins in the window. And I watched my family drive away. And there was another time I had broken my foot in 1st grade, and I didn't want to tell anyone at school, so I rode the bus home, and I got stuck at the bus stop because I couldn't walk home, and no one came to get me until it was dark. And there were many times where I felt abandoned, and it was that story that I told myself over and over that came from these small experiences when we're young, that if you truly knew me, you would turn around and walk away. I became a people pleaser. I became a caregiver. I thought these were all assets in my life. But doing the steps, I came to find that they were defects or shortcomings and things that didn't serve me. It's in 6 and 7, I went home after 5, and she said, do 6 and 7. And to me, that was let go, in a nutshell, was to pray on things, although I still was a little nervous about prayer because I was nervous maybe God not only would not respond, but he might respond and tell me I wasn't worthy of help. And but I continued to go to meetings and I continued to read with my sponsor. And I remember one day, while it wasn't a burning bush, I was sitting on a train going from Terminal D to baggage claim. And I remember looking at this woman and saying, oh my God, and to myself, she has the most beautiful eyebrows. And I looked next to her, and this man had the most phenomenal nose. And this person next to them had the most beautiful smile. And look at that gorgeous little child. And suddenly, there was beauty in my life. The next day, I was commuting to work, driving across the bridge 520 in traffic. And I was singing a love song to God. And I thought, okay, where did this come from? But I didn't want to question it because it felt so good. There was finally a little peace in my life, a little sliver. And it really gave me the momentum to continue to work the steps. You know, that comment of before you are halfway through, you will be amazed. It was a moment that I will always cherish. I continued to work the steps, and I found in 8 and 9 a clearing of the deck of being fully honest and allowing those in my life to be honest with me. It opened a connection that I had never had before. I was following direction and not making any major changes in my life in the first year of sobriety. My marriage was faltering. my husband was actually experiencing the grief of losing his drinking partner. He admitted that he was sad to see me quit and that it was difficult for him. We went to counseling for 3 years and did not ultimately end up staying together. But the wonderful thing is, we were able to be honest with one another and find a irreconcilable differences in what we were looking for in life. I suddenly needed a man with vast, deep emotional um, intelligence, and he had no interest in that. We are an amazing friends now, and we have a wonderful relationship. And this program has given that to us. I one of my favorite comments is, "Don't leave before the miracle happens." I remember when I first quit drinking, and they said to me, teaching me self-care. Well, I had all this time on my hands, and they said, "Well, yeah, do something you're interested in, do something you love." I did not know anything besides drinking. And it took me a long time, with the help of those in the program, to say, "Why don't you try this? Try reading, try taking a bath, try playing tennis." I played tennis, years before. And it was in these activities and in trying all these new things that I began to find myself. The program has given me a wonderful sense of peace and calm, light, beauty, and love in the world that I never saw before. It's a meditation. It's given me tools, it's given me friendships, and the ability to show up for others. I was in a meeting, and a woman had said, I was probably 4 years sober, and she said, "Oh, my topic is going to be next indicated thing. So I wanted to talk about something maybe that you had experienced that was difficult during your sobriety." And I thought, well, nothing's been terribly difficult. But at this point, I had been divorced. I had moved twice. I had a new job and a new boss. And I had had a really difficult experience with my son. He was struggling with depression. And we had a home security video that would just be on when no one was home. And on that video was him putting a noose around his neck and watching him struggle through that. And he ultimately took it down. But I came home that afternoon after receiving a call from a friend of his in college. He said, "You should head home. I think Max isn't all right." And all I could think is, thank God I am sober. I could never have sat with him through this. And I also learned in the program I couldn't do this for him. I could sit by his side and support him, get him some help that he needed outside. I am so grateful for this program. I love the little nuggets that we see and hear in meetings. A friend of mine, calls them refrigerator theology. And one of my favorites is, you can't live in fear and gratitude at the same time. And so I have a gratitude group. We get together in the morning and we text one another a few little things we're grateful for. And that's how we begin our day. It's all these tiny, simple little tools. And the fact that it all starts with we. It is a we program. I was living a life of isolation. I was living a life of self-will. And the we has given me such a sense of connection and belonging. I walked into Water's Edge, year 2 of sobriety, Christmas morning. My family's at home hungover from Christmas Eve. And I have never felt so at home. I didn't want to leave. I was like, wait, I have to go have brunch with my family. It was phenomenal, the feeling, and all so, so thankful for this program. There are a few things that I try to do to maintain sobriety as it progresses. I don't suffer from cravings, although I do find myself occasionally having dreams, drinking dreams. Quick indicator that I need to be at more meetings that week. But I like to say just live in the middle of both. Maybe on the edge of the boat when the wind's blowing in your hair and the seas look so exciting. But I find things get a little scary out there. I start to maybe not make the best decisions. I'm swearing at people in traffic. I'm upset with the woman behind the cash register. And as long as I stay in the middle of the boat and surround myself by others and give back, I was so nervous to sponsor people. My first sponsee, I'm not sure if she made it. We stopped working together, and I hadn't seen her since then. But I learned in this program, all we are here to do is to take you through the steps, just as we had done, and that the results will be the results of God. And I just have to let go and let God. I've done some book studies with some of the most amazing women in this program. And I learned so much when we read together. My sponsor would always say to me, one of my biggest fears was, what does it look like? What does it look like on the other side? And she said, Jodi, don't leap from A to B. That is not faith. She goes, faith is leaping from A. And I have found so many times, over and over, more times than not, that when I leap with no idea of what is on the other side, I am so pleasantly surprised. My brain can only forecast what it knows from my past. And that is so limited. And it is so wonderful to go to meetings and share how we've walked through difficult times in our lives. We share joy, we say sorrow, we share grief. And I can take a piece of that from everyone. I'm really, really grateful for this program, and never realized that purpose and service would be so gratifying. That by whenever I would call my sponsor and I'd be struggling with something, complaining about work or my boss, her answer was, go clean the bus stop. And I was like, have you been to the bus stop in Seattle? It's disgusting. She said, yes. And so then I would sit and I'd think, am I really going to call her and complain? I don't want to clean the bus stop. But anonymous acts of kindness are so immensely rewarding. It was contradictory to anything I believed before joining this program. There are so many things that I've learned here that, of course, I pass on to my children, whether they want to hear it or not. And one of them is, I sat with the two of them and I said, hey, boys, there's a 50% chance one of you is going to be an addict or an alcoholic. And my youngest immediately responded, not I. And I thought, oh no, there he is. And the oldest one turned to me and he said, Mom, one of us or both of us may, but now we know where to go and how to handle it. And I too have the same situation from my grandfather. He was a influential man in AA. after losing his wife. She was 42 when she died of alcoholism. And I've lost my brother-in-law at 53 on the streets in a shelter. He passed. And this program is saving grace. And the grace is given from all of you. I find God in the connection among fellows. And I am just really grateful to be there. So thank you.
Thank you.